My sister gave our parents an expensive car to maintain her perfect daughter reputation, but sent me an invoice for payment. So, I refused to play her games, and now she's calling me in a panic because the bank wants. I'm Evelyn Hartfield, and I've always tried to be the responsible one in the family. At 32, I've built a solid career as a healthcare administrator, own a modest condominium that I'm still paying off, and try to make sensible decisions despite the chaos that often surrounds my family. My sister Brooke, who's 3 years younger than me, is, well, let's just say we're operating from completely different playbooks in life. Growing up in suburban America wasn't easy being the older sister. My parents, Richard and Martha, always seemed to find fault with everything I did, while Brooke could practically do no wrong. When I got straight A's in high school, Dad would look over his reading glasses and say, "That's expected from you, Evelyn." But when Brooke scraped by with B's, they'd throw her a celebration dinner at her favorite restaurant. "Your sister responds better to positive reinforcement," Mom would explain when I questioned the double standard. When I started my first jobs at 16 working weekends at the local hospital gift shop, Dad criticized me for not focusing enough on academics. But when Brooke spent her summers lounging by the community pool, posting selfies, and working on her tan, they'd defend her saying, "Brooke needs her rest. You know how sensitive she is to stress." So when our parents' 30th wedding anniversary was approaching this June, I was determined to give them something truly special. Mom, with her Italian heritage, had always dreamed of visiting Tuscany. She'd spend hours watching Italian cooking shows in our kitchen, meticulously trying to recreate authentic pasta dishes, and talking wistfully about the beautiful architecture and rich cultural history of her ancestors' homeland. I knew it would be the perfect gift. A fully paid 2-week tour of Tuscany, staying at boutique hotels, with private winery tours, cooking classes with local chefs, and guided historical explorations, everything included. I was finalizing the booking details in my office at the hospital, between patient administration meetings, when my phone lit up with Brooke's face on the screen. I took a deep breath before answering the video call. "Hey, sis," she chirped in that artificially sweet voice that immediately set off warning bells in my head. I could see she was in the middle of recording something for her social media followers, her face perfectly made up, despite it being barely 9 a.m. I just had to pause my morning wellness routine live stream because I suddenly wondered, what are you getting Mom and Dad for their anniversary? It's coming up so soon. I hesitated for a moment, glancing at the Tuscany travel brochures spread across my desk, but decided to be honest. I've arranged a wine tour of Tuscany for them. Mom's always wanted to explore her Italian roots, and, oh my God, Brooke cut me off with a theatrical laugh, flipping her hair for what I assumed was her audience's benefit. "You are so predictable, Evie. I knew you'd do something boring and practical like that. But what are you actually getting them? Something they'll remember forever?" I felt my jaw tighten, but managed to keep my voice neutral. "What are you getting them, Brooke?" "Oh, it's a major secret," she said, lowering her voice to a conspiratorial whisper, her eyes gleaming with self-satisfaction. "But trust me, they're going to absolutely lose their minds when they see it. Way more exciting than some boring old trip that they'll forget about in a month." And with that, she blew a kiss to the camera and ended the call abruptly. I just shook my head and turned back to finalizing the travel arrangements. Brooke had always been like this, always trying to turn every family event into a social media spectacle starring herself. People who only followed her carefully curated online presence thought she was this fascinating, spontaneous free spirit, but those of us who knew the real Brooke understood the truth. Behind all the grand gestures, designer outfit posts, and dramatic flourishes, there wasn't much substance, just an exhausting need for validation and attention. The day of the anniversary celebration arrived, and I carefully packed the personalized travel documents in a handcrafted Italian leather portfolio before taking an Uber to the upscale hotel where the event was being held. When I arrived, the elegant ballroom was already buzzing with relatives, family friends, and what appeared to be several of Dad's pharmaceutical company colleagues. I made my way through the crowd, hugging Mom and Dad, while noticing Brooke flitting around the room like a hyperactive butterfly, her phone in hand, as she live-streamed herself, directing the event. The appetizer station needs to be angled more toward the natural light, she was instructing a confused-looking hotel staff member, while simultaneously narrating to her phone, organizing every detail of my parents' milestone celebration. Planning is so my thing. I watched this performance with a mixture of irritation and pity, knowing Mom had actually spent weeks coordinating everything with the hotel event planner. I caught the eye of my cousin Audrey across the room, who gave me a knowing smile and subtle eye roll. At least someone else saw through the charade. The guests started taking their assigned seats at elegantly decorated tables, and the formal gift-giving ceremony began. I waited patiently as relatives and friends presented their gifts and made heartfelt speeches. Mom and Dad were beaming, with tears in their eyes, as they listened to everyone's kind words about their 3 decades together. Finally, I stood up, clutching my gift and ready to present it, along with the short speech I'd carefully prepared about family legacies and reconnecting with our roots. But before I could even step forward, Brooke dramatically jumped up from her seat. "Everyone, please. I need all of you to come outside right now," she announced, her voice commanding the entire room as she gestured excitedly toward the hotel's front entrance. "Mom, Dad, your real anniversary surprise is waiting." 2 weeks after the anniversary party, the whole hotel ballroom spectacle faded into the background as I threw myself into work, staying late at the hospital, taking on extra ethics committee meetings, and volunteering additional weekend shifts at the hospice, anything to keep my mind off how deeply hurt I felt. The sting of public humiliation lingered, making me question a lifetime of trying to be the good daughter. But then, one ordinary Tuesday afternoon, as I was reviewing patient care protocols at my desk, a notification popped up on my computer screen that made my blood run cold. It was a WhatsApp message from Brooke with an attachment that turned out to be a detailed invoice for $75,000. The cost of the white Lexus RX she'd given our parents, including all the premium upgrade packages and extended warranties. At first, I thought it must be some kind of tasteless joke, or maybe she'd sent it to me by accident. But as I stared at the itemized list, I knew better. This had Brooke written all over it. My hands were trembling as I initiated a video call. She picked up immediately, her perfectly made-up face filling my screen, as if she'd been waiting for my reaction. "What exactly is this invoice about?" I asked, my medical administrator voice kicking in, the calm, measured tone I used when addressing serious protocol violations at the hospital. "Oh, that," Brooke replied, casually applying lip gloss while looking at her own image on screen. "Yeah, so I got the Lexus on this amazing promotional financing plan, but now they're saying I need to make the first payments like immediately. I don't have that kind of cash flow right now between brand partnerships, so you need to handle it. The finance charges are already adding up." I nearly dropped my phone, my professional composure cracking. "Are you actually serious right now? You purchased a luxury vehicle you had no means to pay for, orchestrated this elaborate social media moment, giving it to Mom and Dad, and now you expect me to cover the $75,000 bill?" "Exactly," she chirped, as if I'd finally understood a simple concept. "You totally get it now. Have you completely lost your mind?" I couldn't keep the incredulity from my voice as I closed my office door for privacy. "You paraded around that hotel ballroom like you were some kind of celebrity benefactor, deliberately made my thoughtful gift look insignificant in front of Dad's entire pharmaceutical company. And now you want me to foot the bill for your performance." "Don't be so uptight, Evelyn," Brooke said, her voice taking on that condescending tone I'd endured since childhood. It's just money. You have that whole hospital management career with benefits and everything. I saw your LinkedIn promotion announcement. You can totally afford this. I'm still building my influencer platform, and this kind of thing is an investment in our family's image. No, I said firmly, summoning the same resolve I used when denying unreasonable requests from hospital board members. Absolutely not. This is entirely your responsibility, Brooke. You created this situation, and you need to deal with the consequences. I ended the call before she could launch into her practiced manipulation routine. The WhatsApp notifications started flooding in immediately. Every few minutes, my phone would vibrate with Brooke's name. When I muted her, the messages became increasingly desperate and accusatory. You're being so selfish right now. I can't believe you do this to your own sister. Please, Evelyn, I'm seriously begging you. The finance company is threatening to report this to credit bureaus. You've always been jealous of my social media success, haven't you? Mom and Dad will be absolutely heartbroken when they find out you refuse to help family. Is that what you want? People at the hospital would be shocked to see how cold you are to your own sister. That evening at my condominium, I silenced my phone and tried to focus on reviewing the hospital's new patient care protocols. But concentration was impossible with the constant vibration of incoming messages. By the time I left work that evening, exhausted from a 9-hour day managing healthcare crises, I had over 50 missed calls and nearly 100 WhatsApp messages from Brooke. But the real shock awaited me at my condominium building's entrance. There was Brooke sitting dramatically on the steps, designer sunglasses pushed up on her head, mascara artfully streaked down her face, as if she'd been styled for a photo shoot about distress. Her phone was positioned on a small tripod nearby, and I realized with a jolt that she was recording this entire spontaneous confrontation. Finally, she shrieked, jumping up and rushing toward me with practiced desperation. I've been waiting here for almost 3 hours. How could you completely ghost me during a family emergency? I tried to walk past her toward the building entrance, conscious of my neighbors potentially watching, but she grabbed my arm with surprising force. Evelyn, please. You have to help me. The finance company wants the first payment by Friday, and I don't have it. I literally don't have any of it. My credit score will be absolutely destroyed. Maybe you should have considered that before purchasing a $75,000 vehicle you had no means to pay for, I said firmly, disengaging my arm from her grip and gesturing toward her recording phone. And please turn that off. I'm not participating in your content creation. This isn't for content. This is me documenting how cruel you're being, she protested, though she made no move to stop the recording. Did you even think about what this will do to Mom and Dad when they find out their anniversary gift might get repossessed? Did you think about the monthly payments at all when you were broadcasting your grand gesture across social media? I counted, using my key card to access the building entrance. She started crying harder, the tears flowing precisely down the paths her makeup had already traced. But for once, her performance didn't move me. I'd seen this act too many times before, from childhood tantrums to teenage manipulations to adult crises that always somehow required my intervention. Instead of standing here creating dramatic content, you should be contacting the dealership about your financing options, I told her, holding the door halfway open. This isn't my financial responsibility, Brooke. The loan is in your name, and you need to handle it like the adult you claim to be. You've changed, she screamed, loud enough for several neighbors to turn and stare. Ever since you got that promotion, you think you're better than everyone. Wait until the hospital ethics board hears how you treat your own family. She stormed off toward her ride share, snatching her phone from the tripod as she went, leaving me finally able to enter my building in relative peace. But the knot in my stomach told me this wasn't over. With Brooke, It never ended with just one dramatic scene. The next afternoon, as I was finalizing discharge protocols for a complex patient case, my phone rang with my mother's caller ID. Martha's voice was cold and formal when I answered. "Evelyn, we need to have a serious family discussion. Your father and I expect you at the house after your work shift ends." I could already predict exactly what awaited me, but I went anyway, stopping only to change from my professional attire into something more casual. When I arrived at my parents' meticulously maintained suburban home, the scene was precisely as I'd anticipated. Richard and Martha sitting in their usual positions in the living room. My father in his leather recliner, with reading glasses perched on his nose. My mother on the edge of the sofa with perfect posture, while Brooke sat between them on an ottoman, playing the role of the devastated victim to absolute perfection. "Your sister has informed us of the entire situation." Dad began without greeting, his voice carrying that distinctive tone of disappointment he'd perfected during my childhood. "We simply cannot comprehend why you're refusing to assist her during this financial difficulty." I looked at each of their faces in turn, a healthcare administrator accustomed to difficult conversations, but still stunned by this particular family dynamic. "Are you seriously questioning me about this?" Brooke purchases a luxury SUV she has no means to pay for, orchestrates this elaborate social media moment, presenting it as her gift to you. And now I'm somehow the villain for declining to cover her $75,000 loan. "Family supports family in times of need," Mom said with the firm conviction of someone quoting scripture, her Italian heritage evident in her emphatic hand gesture. Brooke made a financial miscalculation, but Dad started, adjusting his reading glasses. "A miscalculation?" I interrupted, my professional composure slipping. "A miscalculation is ordering too many supplies for the hospital wing." This was a deliberate choice. She knew exactly what she was doing when she upstaged my thoughtfully planned gift and humiliated me in front of your entire social circle. "Why are you making this so dramatic?" Brooke sniffled, producing a tissue from nowhere. "The finance company keeps calling me multiple times a day. They're threatening to report this to credit bureaus if I don't make the first payment immediately." "That's generally what happens when you sign financial documents for a loan," I said, my hospital administrator tone returning. "Did you believe they were simply distributing luxury vehicles without expectation of payment?" Mom stood up then, her movements stiff with anger, and what she did next literally took my breath away. She walked to her designer handbag, pulled out the leather portfolio containing the Tuscany tour documents I'd given them, and thrust them at me with cold determination. "We refuse to accept gifts from someone who demonstrates such cruelty toward her own sister," she said, her voice carrying traces of her Italian accent that only emerged when she was truly upset. "Cancel everything and transfer us the refund immediately. We'll provide the money to Brooke for the vehicle payments." I stared at the portfolio in my hands, feeling as if I'd been physically struck. The custom-designed itinerary with the family winery tours I'd specifically researched based on Mom's ancestral village peeked out from the edge. "So you're actually rejecting the gift I spent months researching and planning because I understood how deeply Mom has always yearned to connect with her Italian heritage?" "Yes," Dad stated definitively, removing his reading glasses. "Until you do what's right and help your sister with this financial situation." The familiar urge to explain, to defend myself, to somehow make them understand the absurdity of their request rose up in my throat. But something stopped me. Perhaps it was professional exhaustion after a week of hospital crises. Maybe it was newfound clarity. Or perhaps, for the first time in my 32 years, I fully comprehended that no reasonable argument would ever change their fundamental perception of their daughters' respective responsibilities to each other. So instead of continuing the pointless debate, I simply stood up, placed the travel portfolio carefully in my messenger bag, and looked at my family one final time. Richard and Martha sat there expectantly, clearly anticipating that I would eventually yield to their demands, as I always had. Brooke watched me with that characteristic expression of smug certainty, assuming her performance had once again achieved the desired result. "I'll address the travel arrangements," I said quietly, my voice betraying nothing of my internal thoughts. Not a hint of the resolution already crystallizing in my mind. "Good," Mom said with finality. "Let us know immediately when you have the refund processed." As I drove home that evening, my mind was already methodically working through exactly what would happen next. They believed they knew me completely. Predictable, reliable Evelyn, the responsible healthcare administrator who always prioritized family needs above her own. They were about to discover just how profoundly they had misunderstood me. The next morning, back in my condo, I sat at my kitchen island until 3 o'clock, staring at the Tuscany travel portfolio. All those meticulous hours I'd spent planning the perfect trip, researching boutique accommodations overlooking vineyards, arranging private cooking classes with local chefs, scheduling personalized tours of historic wineries dating back centuries. I'd even coordinated with a local guide to take them to the exact village where Mom's grandparents had emigrated from, a detail she'd mentioned wistfully for decades. It was supposed to be the fulfillment of her lifelong dream to connect with her heritage. Now it would become something else entirely. When dawn broke, I hadn't slept a minute, but my mind had achieved perfect clarity. I called the travel agency the moment they opened their lines. "I need to cancel a comprehensive Tuscany tour package," I said, my voice steady and professional. "Everything needs to be canceled. Flights, accommodations, culinary experiences, winery tours, local guides, the entire itinerary." The agent was exceptionally understanding and processed everything efficiently. Within 45 minutes, I received confirmation that the full refund of $12,500 would be deposited into my account within 3 to 5 business days. When it arrived, I immediately transferred it to a separate savings account I'd established specifically for this purpose. Not a single cent would go toward Brooke's Lexus payments. I was brewing my morning espresso when my phone lit up with Martha's name. "Have you received the refund yet?" she demanded without any greeting, her voice sharp with impatience. I took a deliberate sip of my coffee before responding. "Yes, I've canceled all the Tuscany arrangements as requested." "Excellent. Transfer the entire amount to my account immediately. Brooke needs to make the first vehicle payment by Friday to avoid penalties." "No." The silence that followed was so complete, I could practically hear her blood pressure rising. "What did you just say to me?" Mom's voice had that dangerous edge I remembered from childhood confrontations. I said no. "I will not be transferring the money to you." "How dare you?" she exploded, her accent becoming more pronounced with anger. "You selfish, ungrateful girl. After everything your father and I have sacrificed for you. Your sister is drowning in financial obligations, and you're sitting there in your fancy condo, counting pennies like some heartless banker." Brooke deliberately chose to purchase a luxury vehicle she had no ability to pay for, I replied with the calm precision I used when delivering difficult news to hospital administration. "That financial decision is not my responsibility to resolve. You're completely irresponsible. You're heartless. You've always been jealous of your sister's social connections. I cannot believe I raised such a cold, calculating daughter." I ended the call mid-tirade and immediately blocked her number in my contacts. Then I systematically blocked Brooke's number, her alternate accounts, and her various social media profiles for good measure. The following morning, as I was reviewing patient care metrics before heading to the hospital, my phone began buzzing incessantly with social media notifications. Curiosity getting the better of me, I logged in to find that my mother had posted an extensive message on her Facebook page. With the heaviest of hearts, I must share a situation that is tearing our family apart. My eldest daughter, Evelyn, has revealed her true character in our time of need. When her beloved sister, Brooke, encountered unexpected financial hardship and desperately needed assistance, Evelyn coldly turned her back on family bonds. She's selfishly hoarding financial resources while watching her only sister suffer the consequences. I never imagined I would need to make such private matters public, but I find myself at my absolute limit. My youngest daughter faces serious financial repercussions, and her own sister, a healthcare administrator with a stable income, refuses to extend a helping hand. Please keep Brooke in your prayers during this difficult period, and pray that Evelyn's heart might soften toward her family's needs. The comment section beneath the post was an absolute inferno of moral outrage. I simply cannot fathom such cruelty toward one's own sister. Family obligations should always supersede personal finances. I always suspected Evelyn had that cold, clinical personality. What kind of healthcare administrator abandons family members in crisis? I methodically read through every single comment, my professional composure cracking with each one as my pulse quickened dangerously. The narrative my mother had crafted was a masterpiece of emotional manipulation. Poor Brooke, the innocent victim of unfortunate circumstances, juxtaposed against me, the heartless villain callously watching her suffer while protecting my financial resources. That's when something fundamental inside me finally broke. A decade of serving as the family scapegoat, of watching Brooke effortlessly escape consequences for her actions while I was criticized for even the smallest misstep. It all coalesced into a moment of absolute clarity. I opened my laptop and began composing a response with the precision and documentation skills I'd honed through years of medical administration. Since my mother has chosen to make private family matters into public discourse, I believe it's appropriate to share the complete narrative that was conspicuously omitted from her post. At my parents' 30th anniversary celebration in June, I presented them with a fully funded luxury tour of Tuscany, including visits to my mother's ancestral village, something she has spoken of wanting to experience her entire life. My sister, Brooke, upstaged this gift by presenting our parents with a brand new Lexus RX, creating an elaborate social media moment around her generosity. What no one in attendance knew was that she had financed this vehicle entirely on credit with absolutely no means to make the payments. 2 weeks after this public display, she sent me an invoice demanding I pay the $75,000 bill for the car. Yes, you read that correctly. She expected me to pay for the gift she publicly presented as her own. When I declined, my parents immediately sided with her, returning my carefully planned gift and demanding I transfer them the refund to cover Brooke's vehicle payments. For those requiring verification, I've attached the relevant documentation. I methodically uploaded screenshots of everything: Brooke's WhatsApp message with the $75,000 invoice, her stream of increasingly manipulative messages demanding payment, her recorded threats when I refused, my parents' communications insisting I surrender the travel refund, Mom's voicemail calling me selfish and irresponsible, the entire digital trail of systematic emotional manipulation and financial extortion. The response was immediate and overwhelming. The tide of public opinion shifted so dramatically, it was almost disorienting to witness. Oh my God, she purchased a luxury vehicle with no ability to pay for it, just to overshadow her sister. What kind of person demands their sibling finance a gift they've publicly presented as their own? Those concerned parents are completely enabling this financial irresponsibility. Evelyn, I sincerely apologize for jumping to conclusions without knowing the facts. Your sister clearly needs professional financial counseling. I cannot believe your parents would reject such a thoughtful, meaningful gift to instead enable your sister's irresponsible behavior. Within 20 minutes, Mom's original post vanished from her timeline. Shortly thereafter, she sent me a message from an unfamiliar number. How dare you publicly expose private family matters this way? I couldn't suppress a bitter laugh at the hypocrisy as I blocked that number as well. In the weeks following this social media confrontation, our extended family fractured into two distinct factions. My cousin Audrey called to inform me that a significant argument had erupted in the family group chat, with the majority of relatives firmly supporting my position. She kept me updated on the drama I was missing by blocking the primary participants. But the most revealing information came from my uncle Trevor, who maintained communication with both sides of the family dispute. He informed me that my parents had been forced to withdraw from their retirement accounts to cover the payments on Brooke's Lexus. They had apparently attempted to return the vehicle to the dealership, but discovered that the financing agreement Brooke had signed contained no return provision. Your father had to liquidate $30,000 from his 401k, Uncle Trevor explained during one of our weekly check-in calls. They're attempting to keep this information private, but they had to pay substantial early withdrawal penalties and additional taxes. Your mother is absolutely furious about the situation, but here's the remarkable part. They continue to place the blame entirely on you. That's entirely consistent with established patterns, I replied, feeling strangely detached from the situation. How is Brooke handling the fallout? Oh, she's maximizing the victim narrative for everything it's worth, constantly telling everyone how traumatized she is by your betrayal and how she never imagined her own sister would destroy the family dynamics like this. But her audience has significantly diminished. Your documented response opened many people's eyes to the reality of the situation. The repercussions extended well beyond our immediate family circle. Brooke's carefully cultivated social media persona as the spontaneous, generous lifestyle influencer had suffered serious credibility damage. Several of her former friends reached out to me privately to share similar experiences of her grand public gestures that invariably concluded with someone else covering the expenses. She organized this extravagant surprise birthday celebration for me last year, her former college roommate confided in a direct message. Reserved an entire restaurant space, ordered premium champagne, hired live entertainment, the complete experience. Then, approximately 2 weeks later, she began subtly suggesting that since it was my party, I should contribute to the costs. I ended up financing nearly 80% of the expenses because she emotionally manipulated me into it. I genuinely believed I was the only person she treated this way. My parents, meanwhile, were experiencing the consequences of their long-established favoritism. Their social circle, who had observed them prioritize Brooke and criticize me for years, began openly questioning their parental judgment. Mom's friend since high school, Diane Colwell, apparently confronted her directly during their weekly bridge club meeting. Your mother attempted to defend their position, Uncle Trevor reported. Claimed they only provided Brooke with additional support because she needed it more, while you were always so self-sufficient. Diane asked if it ever occurred to them that perhaps you had to become independent because they were perpetually occupied with rescuing Brooke from her latest crisis. The aftermath. I listened to all these updates with a complex mixture of vindication and profound sadness. Part of me felt relieved that the truth had finally emerged into the light, but another part grieved for the family relationships that would never return to their former state. Not that they had been particularly healthy connections to begin with, built as they were on conditional love and dramatic rescues. The most unexpected development came from my younger cousin, Madeline Lawson, who was beginning medical school in the fall. She called me one evening while I was reviewing hospital protocols, her voice carrying a nervous energy. I wanted to personally thank you, she said hesitantly, for standing your ground in this whole situation. I mean, I've been observing how Uncle Richard and Aunt Martha interact with you and Brooke my entire life, and, well, I've always felt this implicit pressure to emulate Brooke, you know? To be flashy and camera-ready and exciting. But watching you maintain your professional boundaries made me realize it's completely acceptable to be the responsible, ethical person who refuses to enable harmful behavior. Mom says you've become her new role model in healthcare leadership. As the extended family dynamics continued to shift and evolve, I channeled my energy into planning my own expedition. Every evening after completing my hospital administration duties, I researched different destinations and authentic experiences, creating an itinerary designed exclusively for my own enrichment, not to impress anyone or prove anything to my family. I settled on an immersive cultural and archaeological exploration, beginning in Cusco to acclimate to the altitude, then to the Sacred Valley with its incredible textile traditions and agricultural terraces, followed by a 4-day guided trek along the Inca Trail, culminating in sunrise at Machu Picchu. I registered for indigenous cooking workshops, archaeological photography sessions, and even secured permits for some of the less traveled mountain paths, experiences I had always postponed while trying to fulfill my role as the responsible daughter. The day before my scheduled departure, I received a substantial overnight package at my condo. Inside was a handcrafted card signed by over 20 extended family members, including my grandmother Rose, all sending their heartfelt wishes for my Peruvian adventure. They had also included family photographs I'd never seen before, images of me as a young girl in my first hospital volunteer uniform, moments when I'd achieved academic recognition, times when I'd assisted elderly patients during my early nursing rotations, meaningful accomplishments my parents had consistently overlooked in their focus on Brooke's more photogenic activities. My aunt had attached a handwritten note. "We should have advocated for you much sooner, but we're incredibly proud of the healthcare leader you've become." I carefully packed those photographs alongside my professional camera, hiking equipment, and medical kit. As I was conducting my final inspection of my condo before heading to the airport, my phone displayed an unfamiliar number. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Evelyn?" It was my mother's voice, sounding somehow diminished. "Trevor mentioned you're traveling to Peru." "Yes," I replied, maintaining my professional composure. "I'm departing tomorrow morning." A weighted silence stretched between us. "Your father and I have been discussing recent events," she finally continued. "This entire situation with Brooke and the Lexus. It's forced us to reconsider some long-established patterns. We've insisted she begin financial counseling. And, well, I recognize it's insufficient at this point, but I want to apologize about the Tuscany tour. You invested considerable thought into selecting a meaningful experience connected to our heritage, and we callously dismissed your thoughtfulness." "Yes," I acknowledged simply. "You did exactly that." Another extended silence filled the line. "Have a safe and enriching journey, Evelyn. Please take proper medical precautions at high altitude. And, perhaps, when you return, we might have coffee together. Just the two of us." I considered this tentative olive branch. "Perhaps," I said carefully. "I'll contact you when I've returned and settled back into my routine." After ending the call, I sat beside my expedition backpack and released a long, controlled breath. This wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. But it represented something significant. A first fracture in the wall of family dysfunction. A potential beginning of authentic communication. Whether anything substantial would develop from this initial crack remained entirely uncertain. The following morning, as my flight ascended toward Peru, I reflected on how dramatically different everything had unfolded from my original intentions. I had planned to give my parents their dream heritage experience in Tuscany, and instead found myself embarking on my own transformative journey to Machu Picchu. I had spent decades attempting to maintain family harmony, only to initiate the most significant restructuring of our family system in its history. I had dedicated my entire life to being the reliable, predictable healthcare professional, and had finally taken an action completely outside their expectations of me. My phone illuminated with a message from Audrey, wishing you an incredible Peruvian adventure. Can't wait to hear about the Inca Trail. Professional update. Brooke's Lexus was repossessed yesterday morning. The finance company arrived while she was mid-live stream. Karma delivers with impressive efficiency. I smiled and activated airplane mode. Brooke's ongoing drama, my parents' belated realizations, the family reorganization, all of it could wait until my return. For the next 17 days, I had ancient Incan architecture to explore, mountain trails to navigate, indigenous cuisine to experience, and meaningful photographs to capture. For the first time in my 32 years, I was prioritizing my own growth and fulfillment above family expectations. And it felt absolutely transformative.